Olá, boa tarde a todas e todos. Vamos retomar aqui, então, a segunda parte do nosso seminário dedicado a Histórias da Dança, um primeiro seminário que vem trazer discussões e vem debater tanto as relações entre artes visuais e dança, como a presença da dança nos espaços expositivos. Agora, na parte da tarde, a gente vai ouvir apresentações do MATHIEU COPELAND, Cláudia Miller e a Julia Brian Wilson. Então, vou apresentar brevemente o Mathieu, antes de convidá-lo para o palco e já agradecer a presença dele aqui. As questões que ele vai colocar são muito importantes para nós, para todo o processo de reflexão e amadurecimento desse projeto. Mathieu é curador independente freelance desde 2003. Copeland foi responsável pela curadoria das exposições Voids, a Retrospective, no Centro Pompidou, em Paris, e na Kunsthalle, em Berna, além de editar a célebre antologia Voids. Entre várias outras exposições, realizou as curadorias A Choreographed Exhibition, Soundtrack for an Exhibition, Alan Vega, Gustav Metzer, A Mental Mandala. Mathieu Copeland também deu início e fez curadoria da série A Spoken Word Exhibition, Reprise, Exhibitions to Hear Read, em andamento, apresentada em 2013 no MoMA, em Nova York. Copeland também editou Choreographing Exhibitions, uma antologia e publicação manifesto aclamada pela crítica. Em 2017, foi coeditor da antologia radical The Anti-Museum. Por favor, Mathieu, estamos muito entusiasmados com a sua participação e prontos para ouvir a sua apresentação. Obrigado.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me here. It's great to be in Brazil for the first time, and especially here at the MASP and what a beautiful anti-museum. And how wonderful it is to experience another understanding of what museums can be. And I hoped it was more common, it was more the norm, rather. And of course, I thank all the team here at MASP for having made that possible. And let's have a little talk. So I'm going to be reading from a paper. I'm sorry for you guys, it's going to be no performance on stage. But it's better for translation, I thought. So if it happened to make sense, at least it make proper sense. And if it doesn't, then it is a performance. Okay, there we go. So, it is one talk, don't you get worried. However, the talk is divided in two parts. First of all, I wanted to talk about a choreographed exhibition, the exhibition that Olivia just mentioned, and, give you a run-through about how it was articulated and organized and how it happened to be. And in the second part, I'd say it's more of a manifesto of what choreographing exhibitions could imply, or where does it come from, and where does it lead us to. So, first part. A choreographed exhibition. A choreographed exhibition is an exhibition solely composed of movements. During the time of the exhibition, 3 dancers occupy constantly the space of the institution as they interpret a choreography of gestures, figures, and displacements and movements. Following the scores and instruction written by choreographers, including Cecilia Bangolea, Jana Boker, Philippe Egli, and Jennifer Lacey, musicians, including Michael Parsons, dramaturges, including Tim Etchells, or again visual artists, including Roman Ondak, Karl Onquist, Fia Backstrom, and Michael Portnoy. To choreograph is an invitation to work with the ephemerality of movement. It asks how we can work all together and how to write and transmit works of arts. Heterogeneous practices confronting us to medium other than the one usually practiced lead to semantic shifts. The materiality of gesture raises the question of the memory of a work of art and of its exhibition. A gesture, a movement, ultimately exists only in the memory of the dancers and through the bribes of the souvenir experienced by the spectators. A caveat to avoid is a programmatic layout of the event that would follow a strict hourly plan announced. Considering how each work plays with one another and how this should occur during the duration of the exhibition, The exhibition should not become a suite of performances. To conceive of a choreographed exhibition is to work movements written in the time of an exhibition. Within the title of the exhibition, the whole program is announced. A choreographed exhibition announces the choreography within each piece and the choreography of all pieces amongst themselves. A choreographed exhibition is defined ultimately by its duration and the specific temporality of each work. The time of the exhibition becomes an articulated score that encapsulates the different scores written by the artist to be reread, reworked, and realized by the dancers. Since its onset in 2007, 3 occurrences have so far happened. Originally at the Kunsthalle St. Gallen, where the exhibition happened from the 1st of December 2007 through to the 13th of January 2008, with the classically trained and gifted dancers from the Tanztheater St. Gallen. The exhibition was subsequently envisaged anew from the 8th of November through to the 21st of December 2008 at La Ferme du Buisson, Noisiel's Contemporary Arts Center in the Outskirts of Paris. Together with Julie Pellegrin, its director, we invited the maverick collective of self-proclaimed interprètes, Le Club des Cinq, as dancers for that exhibition. Our desire was to question the meaning of interpreting works of art again in a different place and context, yet within the same exhibition. We asked ourselves, how was it written? How what is written is to be transmitted and realized. The tessiture of each art center being so radically different, each architecture and its inherent context do necessarily inform the work and its interpretation. We asked ourselves how each dancer, each artist could reinterpret and re-engage with the reality of a work of art only composed of movement in different venues. Jennifer Lacey is an American choreographer living in Paris. From the onset of our discussion, Lacey told me that she wanted to fuck up my program when I invited her to be part of the exhibition, which obviously rejoiced me. Lacey thus chose to work the modulation between each works and the transmission from one gesture to another. Sculpting the fragmentation of time inherent to exhibition making, Jennifer Lacey ultimately sought and worked its overall unity. To realize an exhibition is to modulate a counterform. The counterform between paintings, between a painting and a sculpture, or again between objects, any objects, may it be a conceptual object, an abstract object, an immaterial object, a rematerialized object, or an object movement. I am obsessed in how an exhibition can be nothing else but a counterform, when there is nothing to be seen other than the articulation between the works that are apparently absent. In working the intermediate spaces, Jennifer Lacey approaches what I consider being the counterform that unifies everything, thus affirming the status of an exhibition being a fragmentary unity. Carl Enquist, his heart is found at its roots within the words, and how words are shared through language. It was thus an honor for me to invite him within the exhibition, the choreographed exhibition, to realize a choreographed polyphony. Envisaging gesture as a whole, the voice is a gesture too. Through a choreographed exhibition, the 3 dancers become 3 voices performing choreographed polyphonies, where the movement of the voice thus revealing the physical spaces of the gallery. Influential musician Michael Parsons co-founded, together with Cornelius Cardew and Howard Kempton in 1968, the Scratch Orchestra, an orchestra for non-professional musicians that sparkled a revolution in experimental British music, fostering the likes of Brian Eno, David Cunningham. Parsons composed the Walking Piece in 1969 for the Scratch Orchestra, a proclaimed silent piece of visual music. I invited Michael, who accepted this invitation, to realize this piece anew within the context of a choreographed exhibition. So thus moving from the idea of the orchestra and how many people that would involve and imply, and really focusing on only 3 dancers, which was the criteria for the exhibition, 3 dancers, any 3 dancers in any given space. Julie Pellegrin, well, hang on, let's finish that part. Sorry. Through a working piece, the spaces are revealed solely through the materiality of an apparent simple gesture, walking. Julie Pellegrin reminded us that with deliberately no decor, no dramatic light or music, the gestures resonate in the empty galleries of the institution as the dancers call for our entire attention. Only the opening hours of the art center and the duration of the exhibition give a rhythm to this piece. Coming and going in an endless continuum, the gestures become floating abstract forms that blossom and derivate in space. Our experience as spectators is fundamentally transformed. It is no longer us that swirl around the works, but the works that hover around us, taking us in a physical journey. The troubling proximity with the dancer and the movement lead to unpredictable outcomes, and thus forces us to be in movement too, always repositioning ourselves. The movement of the dancers and the movement of the spectator are of equal importance. It is thus necessary not to have raised stages in the exhibition spaces, nothing but the empty spaces. Everything happens on common ground. The exhibition takes its form and evolves with time. It is never fixed other than in a memory. All that ultimately remains is a souvenir of the past gestures. A choreographed exhibition was again realized anew from the 16th of September through to the 15th of October 2017, 10 years later the original exhibition at the Kunsthalle in St. Gallen, and this time at CA2M, Centro de Arte 2 de Mayo, in Móstoles on the outskirts of Madrid. Thanks to an invitation by Manuel Segade, the director. A choreographed exhibition was reprised, reworked, reinterpreted 10 years after its original occurrence. Occupying the space of the Art Center once more offers us the unique experience of an exhibition of movement in all its exploded form and comprehensions. Now, the second part. To choreograph an exhibition. To choreograph an exhibition is to envisage exhibition making through the prism of choreography, by means of the term that compose an exhibition: score, body, space, time, and memory. To curate an exhibition encompasses the score that enables its realization, the body that makes it be, the location it inhabits, the time taken for its experience, and the memory that remains once the exhibition course has run. To choreograph an exhibition is to affirm the criticism of the art objects that make an exhibition be, and of the exhibition object that is created as a result of an accumulation of objects. To choreograph an exhibition is to envisage both an exhibition in a moment of time and the exhibition of a moment of time. To choreograph an exhibition is to confront ourselves to the ephemeral nature of movements. The materiality of a gesture raises the question of the memory of an artwork, and thus of its exhibition. To choreograph an exhibition is to accept both the choreography inherent to a work of art, the choreography of these works of art within the time of the exhibition, and ultimately a choreography of our own movement as spectator within the space of the gallery, as we are to negotiate our own journeys in regard to the open and indeterminate journey of the choreographed works of art. To choreograph is the writing of movement in time and space. The word exhibition and its French translation exposition asserts the possibility of both an exhibition stripped bare of all content, as in exposed, and the possibility of an exposition, a position that once was, but is no more, that moves on, a position that is yet to happen. To choreograph an exhibition is to expose the postures and the positions of works of art. To expose an exhibition is to strip bare and make do with all of the constituting matter of an exhibition, revealing nothing but its core, exposed, exhibited, scrutinized, denuded, dissected, the exhibition no longer has any inhibitions. The exhibition of an exposition is to exhibit a position as a suite of past, present, future realities. To expose is to reveal the causality, as in the past and X, of a situation, a position. Classically, an exhibition is a temporary gathering of disparate objects in a given space. As such, an exhibition is a prominently subjective read. To choreograph an exhibition encapsulates the accepted and unstable nature of works of art. We have long accepted that we are no longer confronted to static objects. The nature and possibilities of the object art have profoundly transformed our experience in a gallery. In equal measure to that, art is no longer a passive receptacle, but a very much an active motion. As spectators, we are no longer passive witness, but very much active agents. To curate is to challenge what an exhibition can be and deconstruct the accepted normative understanding of exhibitions whilst breaking down their assumed limits. We shall subvert the traditional role of exhibitions and renew our perception of these. To challenge the nature of exhibitions is to confront the entire apparatus that surround their inherent context. To do so is to redefine what curating is. We must question the role of a curator and challenge theories and accepted understanding of what curating is expected to be. To curate is to voice a voice. The role of a curator must be seen in a broader understanding than what is commonly experienced in most, if not all, institutions. It is this acceptation of this voice that we express and strive to further. A curator is at once a dramaturge, a choreographer, a filmmaker, a writer. A curator builds a repertoire. With a clear drive on radicality and the limits of art, furthering the possible understanding of a rematerialized form of art, this reconsideration of what an exhibition can be comes with a complete redefinition of the semantics involved. For instance, film, choreography, exhibition, along with an affirmation to renew the possibilities of the history invoked or convoked. This whilst addressing the nature of works of art. The material nature of a rematerialized thought, an exhibition, is an anti-position rooted in its expositions. It exposes, reveals, and displays a state of flux. Exhibiting a constant exposition, an exhibition, reflects an anti-position to what was, what is, and as such what will be, is open, unwritten, unexpected, and thus simply will be. Its apparent immateriality affirms the question of the rematerializations of a work of art, and thus question its status of an object and of objectivity. To choreograph an exhibition is to question the physical reality of objects, whilst creating a conceptual object. Confrontations find their origin in a mental dramaturgy. We must contemplate a different materiality. The exhibition is thus revealed as a sensitive architecture of impermanence, an immaterial and sustainable object. The institution is a medium in itself. A choreographed exhibition questions the context of the exhibition and the possibility of an exhibition for a given context. The decor of the institution corpses in the corpse of the institution. Le décor décore dans le corps de l'institution. The institution becomes the spectacle, a spectacle that it produces to be seen and experienced. An institution seems to be nothing without its public. And thus, within the spectacle of the occupied institution, who speaks? Is it the institution itself, the artist, the performers, the audiences, None, all, and to whom? Bodies, antibodies, bodies against, within, with, disserving, deconstructing the body of the institution. Antibodies fighting to preserve the integrity of the body of institutions imperial. What and who are these bodies that the institutions strive to have to exist and in equal measures fear so much? What is the relationship between these bodies and their temporary host? The concept of a seemingly permanent institution, an institution that produces antibodies and that fosters antibodies. Antibodies produced by the immune institution in response to the presence of a permanent state of affairs. Antibody recognize and latch onto the institution in order to remove, alter, or even destroy its body. As antibodies circulate, they attack and neutralize all the identical institution to the one that triggered this violent and necessary response. Antibodies attack institutions by binding to them. From the point of view of the power structures that institutions are, antibodies are nothing but uninvited antigens within the body of the institution. Would the institution finally be imperial? In taking over, antibodies that reclaim a renewed integrity for the body of the institution, a revolution devoid of any endgame, leading to a normalized situation, that of a permanent movement of changes. Thank you. I'm sure we'll make sense of that all once we talk all together.
Obrigada, Mathieu. Agora eu vou apresentar a Cláudia Miller, nossa próxima palestrante, né? Muito feliz também de, depois de ter visto algumas dos seus espetáculos nessa semana no SESC, poder te apresentar aqui também no seminário Histórias da Dança. Cláudia Miller é artista com projetos desenvolvidos em dança, performance e vídeo. Doutoranda e mestre em artes visuais pela UERJ, professora do curso de dança da Universidade Federal de Uberlândia. Atuou em companhias de dança em São Paulo, no Rio de Janeiro e na Alemanha, dos anos 90 até os anos 2000. Em 2000, começou a desenvolver seus próprios trabalhos, apresentados em festivais e centros de arte no Brasil, na América do Sul, na Europa e na África. Em 2017, Cláudia fez parte da equipe de curadoria da Bienal Sesc de Dança, sendo responsável pelas ações formativas do evento. Foi co-curadora do evento Modos de Existir 8, Dançando com Artistas, etc., no Sesc Santo Amaro, em 2018. Por favor, Cláudia, bem-vinda.
Boa tarde. Eu queria começar agradecendo o convite do MASP, sobretudo ao Adriano, à Andréia e à Olívia, que com certeza estão preparando esse evento há um bom tempo. Eu vou tentar compartilhar, nesses 30 minutos, um pouco da minha pesquisa, tanto artística quanto acadêmica. Eu não tinha ideia de ler, mas, enfim, eu vou acabar lendo aqui um texto. E essa pesquisa focaliza o diálogo entre a dança contemporânea e as artes visuais a partir dos anos 90. Esse título, Deslocamentos da Dança Contemporânea por uma Condição Conceitual, é o título da minha dissertação, onde eu estou procurando pensar as novas configurações e discussões presentes nos trabalhos de artistas ligados à dança que transitam entre esses dois campos. Eu procuro traçar relações especificamente entre a dança contemporânea e o conceitualismo, observando obras que, abandonando o formalismo e o puro exercício da estética, se propõem a acrescentar algo em termos de concepção de dança. Procuro repensar as convenções da dança, o modelo de espetáculo, os espaços e as formas de visibilidade da dança, Essas são as principais questões que me interessam. E hoje, especificamente, embora eu tenha abordado outros artistas na minha dissertação e na minha pesquisa, como Tino Sigal, que poderia ser um artista citado aqui por estar trabalhando muito no contexto das artes visuais, eu vou me focar num trabalho do coreógrafo Wagner Schwartz, que é Transobjeto, e em alguns projetos meus para poder pensar essas relações. Preciso dizer que meu primeiro contato com as artes visuais se deu quando eu ainda era adolescente, nos anos de 83, 84, quando eu fui levada a algumas exposições e galerias, e foi nessa altura que eu encontrei pela primeira vez o trabalho da Lygia Clark, e a primeira vez que eu li uma placa num museu escrito, por favor, toquem nas obras. E essa frase, para mim, virava do avesso o que eu havia visto em museus, galerias e, claro, nos teatros. E, manipulando a sua obra, O Bicho, eu pude vivenciar a integração do espectador participante nos seus trabalhos. E, para mim, ali já não havia algo pronto e separado do público, mas a aventura das suas proposições e o convite para ativar o objeto, que, em si, é apenas potencialidade. E o lugar da experiência inaugurado por Lygia em suas obras, a ruptura dos bichos em relação à noção tradicional da obra de arte e o convite à participação, geraram para mim uma imediata admiração pela artista, mesmo que as suas ideias naquela época parecessem muito distantes do meu ambiente de dança. Depois de alguns anos já de experiência profissional, eu participei das proposições da Lygia Clark, que foram reconstituídas por ocasião da abertura de uma exposição retrospectiva no Paço Imperial, no Rio de Janeiro. E aí esse reencontro afetou-me de outro modo, porque o mundo da artista já não parecia tão inconciliável com a minha dança. O corpo a corpo com os pequenos sacos de areia, de água, com um enorme túnel de tecido, com linhas de carretel saindo da minha boca, com um outro participante unido a mim por um pedaço de roupa, provocaram-me uma alegria lúdica e quase infantil, um prazer inédito de perceber a arte como parte do cotidiano, caminhando na fronteira da vida, sem lado avesso ou direito, como a própria fita de Moebius usada pela Lygia. E os materiais precários, cotidianos e baratos usados a partir da obra Caminhando propõem uma obra que se desfaz e se refaz, não duradoura nem materialmente transcendente. Essa obra que encontra seu cerne na vivência, no encontro com um participante e reflete, para além de uma outra estética, uma outra política. Até aí, participação e proposição não figuravam no vocabulário da minha experiência com a dança. E comecei a pensar que relação esses termos poderiam ter com uma disciplina que muitas vezes aparece como lugar de contemplação, impregnada do culto à perfeição e à beleza. E me perguntar como criar uma obra coreográfica aberta, incorporando a condição participativa, gesto fundamental na arte contemporânea. Então, muitas perguntas emergiam desse segundo encontro. Alguns anos depois, eu me deparei com a pergunta do teórico e dramaturgo André Lepec, que vem me acompanhando desde então. Como cada coreógrafo se envolve em um diálogo direto com as artes visuais para reconsiderar o que constitui o terreno da dança? E ainda Lepec, que aponta, apesar da diversidade das obras, algumas características recorrentes na dança contemporânea de 30 anos para cá. A crítica à representação, a insistência na política, a fusão do visual com o linguístico, o impulso a favor da dissolução dos gêneros, a crítica à autoria e a crítica às instituições. E desde então eu me ocupo com algumas questões, pensando o que podem ser essas possíveis danças contemporâneas hoje, qual a matéria ou o corpo da dança, que relação propõe ao público, qual a política implicada nessas escolhas e qual a relação da dança com a instituição que a abriga. Nos últimos 30 anos, os campos da dança contemporânea e das artes visuais parecem retomar um intenso contato presente já desde as vanguardas, dos balés russos de Diaghilev, dos balés futuristas, da integração de todos os elementos cênicos em obras como o balé triádico de Oskar Schlemmer na Bauhaus e, de outra forma, também na Judson Church. Mas o que me parece agora é que há uma diferença, que não se trata da dança simplesmente apresentar uma justaposição entre dança contemporânea e artes visuais, não só uma colaboração entre artistas de diferentes campos, ou da dança representar as artes visuais. Eu percebo que há nos trabalhos de artistas como a Lia Rodrigues, a Marta Soares, que está aqui hoje, a Vera Manteiro, a La Ribot, eu poderia citar N outros artistas, algo de indefinível em termos de separação de disciplinas, gerando novos híbridos e tornando complexa a nomeação e a localização precisa dessas obras. Espetáculo de dança é um termo que já não abarca a diversidade de propostas que se denominam performances, instalações coreográficas, live art, dança conceitual, body art e intervenções urbanas, entre outras. E essas múltiplas possibilidades exigem uma ampliação no entendimento do que possa ser essas possíveis danças contemporâneas. Se as poéticas da dança nos anos 60 se preocupavam essencialmente com a negação da representação e da dramaticidade, com o uso de movimentos do cotidiano, nos últimos anos do século XX escapam da tradicional ontologia da dança relacionada ao movimento dos corpos treinados de bailarinos. Lepec sublinha o fato de que, por mais que se aponte como óbvia, a relação intrínseca entre dança e movimento é uma construção bastante recente, estabelecendo-se especialmente a partir dos anos 30, quando a dança busca uma substância primeira como forma de delimitar seu espaço autônomo e diferenciado. Em exaurir a dança, performance e política do movimento, Lepec percebe um esgotamento na relação entre dança contemporânea e o movimento. Se a definição original do termo coreografia circunscrevia uma tecnologia que cria um corpo disciplinado para que se mova segundo as ordens de uma escritura, coreógrafos da nova vanguarda da dança europeia e americana dos anos 90 refutam essa definição e questionam essa ontologia da dança que já não reflete suas posições. E é somente a partir dos anos 30 que se cria essa relação ontológica entre dança e fluxo de movimento. E o crítico americano John Martin afirmava que, com o advento da dança moderna, esse campo artístico funda seu verdadeiro início. Esse começo foi o descobrimento da substância real da dança, que resultou ser um movimento. E, para John Martin, foi nesse momento que a dança se tornou uma arte verdadeiramente independente, marcando sua autonomia em relação a outras artes. Mas os coreógrafos mencionados da nova vanguarda da dança dos anos 90, que refutam essa definição, apontam interesses e processos muito diversos, mas têm em comum certas questões. Uma crítica à indústria do espetáculo, aos modos de produção de seus trabalhos, à hierarquia do funcionamento das companhias de dança, a estética formalista que revela o pensamento e a política que cercavam grande parte das criações na dança dos anos 80. Além do uso recorrente da palavra performance para nomear uma série de práticas a partir dos anos 90, o próprio Lepec advoga o uso de uma outra nomenclatura que aparece no jornalismo e na crítica desde o fim dessa década. Dança conceitual, que é o termo, permite ao menos situar historicamente esse movimento dentro de uma genealogia das artes cênicas e visuais do século XX, mediante a referência ao movimento da arte conceitual, do final dos anos 60 e início dos anos 70, que compartilhavam sua crítica à representação, de novo sua insistência na política, sua fusão do visual com o linguístico, sua crítica à autoria e sua crítica às instituições. Então, a utilização do termo dança conceitual imediatamente me instiga pelas questões sobre o entendimento de dança contemporânea que pode pressupor. Se no modernismo as condições da representação tornaram-se centrais, com a explicitação dos meios e das especificidades de cada linguagem, a arte contemporânea vive a indisciplinaridade. Com a expansão de possibilidades nas mais diversas linguagens, trabalhos de dança contemporânea não podem mais ser definidos em termos de aparência, particularidades visuais ou semelhanças de estilo. Marca-se, então, para a dança um segundo momento de ruptura que não é comparável ao antagonismo anteriormente percebido entre a dança moderna e o balé, mas um anseio por um novo projeto que já não se baseia na exploração de novas técnicas, na utilização de movimentos cotidianos ou numa aversão a corpos moldados de uma mesma maneira. Propositiva, a dança contemporânea identifica-se com o conceitualismo e se pergunta: por que sou um trabalho de arte? Além das já citadas, algumas outras questões importantes passam a ocupar artistas ligados da dança. os procedimentos da dança, o discurso, o sistema, a inserção da obra e do artista e uma rejeição à separação entre as disciplinas e entre os próprios papéis na arte, papéis de coreógrafo, dançarino, crítico, teórico, curador, professor, etc. Por essa razão, digo que parece não haver um movimento intitulado dança conceitual, mas a existência de uma condição conceitual na dança contemporânea, nas obras de diversos artistas a partir dos anos 90. Eu vou começar, agora dando alguns exemplos, falando sobre o trabalho de um artista, no trabalho do qual eu acho que essas questões aparecem, que é o Wagner Schwartz. E eu pude acompanhar uma mudança significativa no trabalho do Wagner Schwartz, que é um coreógrafo mineiro e que vive entre São Paulo e Paris, a partir do seu primeiro contato com a obra da Lygia Clark e do Hélio Oiticica, que eu acredito que traz modificações muito grandes no rumo de suas obras. E eu queria falar sobre um trabalho chamado Transobjeto, de 2004. Só para contextualizar brevemente, o Wagner Schwartz se dividia entre a dança e o curso de letras em Uberlândia, Minas Gerais, onde residia nos anos 90. Ele passou pelo movimento de dança de rua, que é extremamente ativo nessa cidade, e aí também iniciou suas próprias pesquisas na dança contemporânea. Em 2003, após ser selecionado para o programa Rumos Dança Itaú Cultural, ele se deparou com algumas questões que viriam a ser seu motor de trabalho. E aqui eu vou abrir aspas para citar uma fala do próprio Wagner. Ele diz: voltando à bolsa do Rumos, eu tinha 15 linhas e 5 minutos de vídeo. Minhas ideias ainda estavam muito frágeis. Como estava fazendo uma apresentação em Portugal, decidi ir até a França para compartilhar minha pesquisa com um amigo. Mostrei a ele as 15 linhas escritas e os 5 minutos de trabalho. Sobre o texto, o amigo disse: isso é uma fantasia. E sobre os 5 minutos em vídeo, isso é Xavier Leroy. Minutos depois, perguntei a ele, diz Wagner, quem é Xavier Leroy? Ele me respondeu, um dos coreógrafos mais famosos da atualidade. Eu não o conheço, respondi muito frustrado, mas em seguida retomei. Ele me conhece? É claro que não, my dear. Wagner Schwartz passa a questionar a soberania da Europa como exportadora de tendências artísticas e culturais, propondo em Transobjeto uma conversa entre os coreógrafos Larribot, Pina Bausch e Xavier Leroy, com Hélio Oiticica, Lygia Clark, Caetano Veloso e Carmen Miranda, problematizando as noções de nacional e estrangeiro ao revisitar o Manifesto Antropofágico de Oswald de Andrade, o movimento neoconcreto e a Tropicália. Suas referências são claras. Veste um parangolé e segura uma pedra que exibe para o público ao som de If You Hold a Stone. Essa é a cena que eu me refiro. Em outra cena, canta uma versão para a música imortalizada na voz de Carmen Miranda, Disseram que eu voltei francesizado, numa óbvia alusão à dança contemporânea francesa que nos anos 90 passou a ditar o mercado internacional desse campo artístico. Vou mostrar 2 outras cenas desse trabalho. Como Wagner, eu e outros tantos coreógrafos brasileiros da mesma geração deveríamos, na ocasião, que era início dos anos 2000, ser conhecedores de tudo que era produzido na Europa, mas não vice-versa. Vale lembrar que, no momento da criação de Transobjeto, notava-se a presença de muitos curadores estrangeiros nos festivais de dança no Brasil, cobrando uma brasilidade estereotipada na dança contemporânea realizada no país. Em Transobjeto, há uma dança que se interessa pelo campo da ação e, de tão avessa ao fluxo ininterrupto de movimentos, é classificada por certos textos e críticas como uma performance. E aí, mais uma vez, aparece a dificuldade em denominar uma dança que recusa o convencionalismo do termo. Queria também apresentar algumas coisas do meu próprio trabalho, pensando como é que a minha pesquisa acadêmica e artística vão se misturando, né? Mas eu queria contar uma história que talvez muitos já saibam, mas que para mim sempre é interessante para pensar questões sobre a definição de dança, né? Em 2004, o coreógrafo Jerome Bell foi apresentado num festival em Dublin um de seus trabalhos intitulado também Jerome Bell. E um espectador, sentindo-se lesado, entrou na justiça contra o festival, alegando não haver no espetáculo nada parecido com dança, que ele definia como pessoas que se movem ritmicamente, dão saltos, geralmente com música, mas não sempre, e que transmitem alguma emoção. A ação foi indeferida, mas o festival teve que arcar com as custas do processo. E esse episódio traz à tona diversas questões para pensar a dança contemporânea, as noções de corpo, coreografia, a relação com o público e com a instituição. Em 2010, eu estreiei esse trabalho chamado Exhibition, cujo título é propositalmente em inglês, fazendo uma associação com essas questões de centro e periferia, que eu já me referi antes, fazendo uma piada com uma associação que pode ter, numa tradução para o português literal, exibição, quando, na verdade, a tradução é outra, né? E o mote desse trabalho é a fabricação de um fictício espetáculo de sucesso, produzindo seus dispositivos de legitimação. A lotação supostamente esgotada, a reserva de ingressos para falsos convidados VIP, a imagem e a identidade visual com a criação de um logotipo e uma vinheta para esses materiais promocionais, a exposição das logomarcas dos patrocínios e apoios, as matérias e críticas em jornais, que são fictícias, entrevistas em vídeo com supostos curadores, cartazes de turnês internacionais jamais realizadas e uma estreia num museu inexistente e um coquetel aparentemente regado a champanhe cara. Eu vou passar um pequeno trecho de um vídeo que é só o início do trabalho. Tá?
Tudo bem? Boa noite, boa noite. Bom, primeiramente, eu queria pedir desculpa para vocês, porque a lotação está esgotada. Eu vim aqui avisar todo mundo. A gente teve um imprevisto hoje e a gente recebeu um pedido dos nossos patrocinadores para uma lista de convidados. Eu pediria para vocês um pouco de paciência, porque eles devem chegar até às 7h30, são 7h10 agora. Se vocês puderem esperar um pouquinho, eu posso tentar acomodar quem estiver na fila. Pode ser assim? A gente dividiria uma fila de convidados e uma fila do público comum. Não tinha nenhuma informação? É a primeira vez. É mesmo? É a primeira vez? É, claro, tem razão. A gente pode dividir os presentes em duas filas, convidados e público comum? Podemos?
E a mesma coisa que eu vi no olho sábado, muito...
Mas você chegou com antecedência hoje, eu acho que vai dar tudo certo.
A relação de vocês com esses patrocinadores eu achei muito viciosa.
Tá delicado?
Só para isso, eu vi a mesma história que vocês, muito chato.
Pessoal, desculpa, mais uma vez. Convidados à minha esquerda, público comum à minha direita, por favor. Tá, então a gente vai aguardar mais 10 minutos e eu volto para tentar acomodar todo mundo.
Para dizer que eu fiquei pensando muito ao longo de Exhibition qual era o material da dança, qual era esse corpo da dança, né? E ao longo desse processo, eu me deparei com a obra do Yves Klein, Levide, que é de 1958, uma exposição para a qual são distribuídos milhares de convites e que, na verdade, consiste numa galeria vazia, onde é servido um drink com azul de metileno, que faz com que todos urinem azul depois, se remetendo à cor, que é patenteada pelo Yves Klein, né? E esse tipo de obra me fez me perguntar qual é o corpo e qual é a materialidade da dança contemporânea, fazendo uma associação com a arte conceitual que efetuava uma crítica ao objeto tradicional de arte. Uma outra coisa que eu passei a pensar também é a relação com o espaço que nas artes visuais, o museu e a galeria vêm sendo problematizados, questionando-se a ideologia do cubo branco. E na dança contemporânea dos anos 90, diversos artistas realizam uma espécie de quebra na moldura da cena, levando a importantes discussões sobre o significado da ideologia da caixa preta, representada pelo palco, pela iluminação, pelo cenário e pelos protocolos do espetáculo. E essas questões foram, para mim, muito cruciais desde o início do desenvolvimento dos meus projetos, pensando muito insatisfeita na obrigatoriedade de me apresentar no teatro como um espaço que se pretende neutro, onde cada espetáculo irá reconfigurá-lo a partir de um suposto zero, né? Então, esse projeto se chama Dança Contemporânea em Domicílio. Ele foi criado entre 2004 e 2005 e era uma espécie de resposta a essas indagações. E o trabalho se inicia com anúncios num programa de um festival ou de um evento, e o produto anunciado é a entrega de 5 minutos de dança contemporânea. A encomenda pressupõe um dançarino que realiza seu ofício em qualquer local que seja solicitado, entregando um bem não utilitário, uma mercadoria não usual, cujo consumo está na fruição do espectador. E atuando na contramão da obra de arte tradicional, que exige seu lugar sagrado e uma recepção silenciosa, Dança Contemporânea em Domicílio busca integrar as práticas artísticas ao cotidiano, perguntando-se como a arte pode fazer parte do dia a dia de qualquer cidadão, qual o seu lugar e papel nos momentos mais comuns da vida. Então, eu vou mostrar algumas imagens de alguns exemplos. Enfim, a gente tem uma coletânea de situações bem grande, mas, enfim, trouxe só algumas. O que aconteceu é que, entre 2004 e 2005, eu enviei o material desse trabalho para diversos festivais, mas poucos curadores se interessaram por acolher um projeto que não seria visível no espaço do teatro. Então, logo depois, eu fiz um vídeo chamado Fora de Campo para me despedir desse projeto impossível de vender. E, como o título indica, o vídeo mostra unicamente o que se passa fora do campo de ação da obra Dança Contemporânea em Domicílio. Em nenhum momento se assiste a uma bailarina dançando. Ao ver o vídeo, somos espectadores dos espectadores que recebem a dança. Eu fiz um corte aí no vídeo, originalmente ele tem 6 minutos e meio, mas a gente vai ver um trecho curtinho dele. Oi, tudo bom?
Tudo.
Eu vim fazer a entrega.
Tá,
pode ser agora?
Vontade.
Próxima mensagem.
Alô, eu queria pedir uma entrega para o próximo sábado à tarde. Eu não sei se vocês atendem em todos os bairros, mas estou aguardando o retorno. Nesse número. Obrigado.
Quebrada que ela fez aqui, com a mão, sei lá o que, foi pra lá, rodou.
Da perna, quando ela faz assim.
O perfil, o movimento do corpo, a sincronia. Sincronia.
Na hora que você bota assim a mão, como se você estivesse depositando alguma coisa, alguma confiança.
Eu vim te fazer uma entrega. Posso fazer? Não?
Ah, não, por favor.
Só para te explicar o que eu vim fazer aqui.
Eu vou trabalhando.
Você vai trabalhando? Tá, mas isso significa que eu posso fazer?
Assim com os braços. Um pé bem reto, pontudo.
E esse negócio de virar o pé também é machuca, hein? E o lance da mão? Entortar a mão? Isso é uma dança?
Poxa, é muito bom se sentir gente uma hora dessa. E simplesmente é um artista atrás de uma máquina, um anônimo.
Eu não tenho,
Mas eu posso ficar aqui e oferecer para outra pessoa? Pode? Então tá bom. Deixa eu ver se tem outra pessoa. Obrigada. Ele não quer ser filmado, a gente tenta outra pessoa. Ah, posso pegar para ele vai gostar.
Muito lindo mesmo, sabe? Não fiz nada de bom assim, de movimento com cor, que é muito legal.
Eu vou avançar um pouquinho, porque eu tenho pouquinho tempo. O tema do espectador é um ponto estratégico nessa obra e é também fundamental na relação entre arte e política. E a recepção da obra é uma questão recorrente no século XX, levando-nos à frase de Duchamp: o espectador faz a obra. Manifestando interesse pela exploração das possibilidades de participação, diversos artistas da dança dos anos 90 sublinham a afirmação de Elijah Clark: no meu trabalho, se o espectador não se propõe a fazer a experiência, a obra não existe. A dificuldade enfrentada no início do projeto Dança Contemporânea em Domicílio revela não só o convencionalismo implícito no entendimento de dança, como também o peso desses limites dentro das instituições que abrigam os trabalhos de dança, e na relação destas com as obras e com os artistas. Se no campo das artes visuais a produção teórica da crítica às instituições já se faz, pelo menos desde os anos 70, na dança, com as instituições e o mercado e o circuito ainda por se estabelecer, esse é um ponto que exige ainda o início de muita reflexão e de muitas produções teóricas. Posso roubar um minuto aqui, gente? Pode? Que eu vou avançar mais um minuto. E um episódio recente que me fez pensar nisso foi o fato de que eu fui convidada em 2016 a apresentar a Exhibition, o falso espetáculo de sucesso, no interior de São Paulo. E a curadora, durante a montagem, me revelou que, apesar de ter assistido ao trabalho 3 anos antes e buscado outras situações para sua apresentação, isso só foi possível no contexto de um evento chamado É Tudo Mentira, tendo em vista a possibilidade de suavizar as possíveis reações negativas por parte do público e de outros setores da instituição. E essa foi uma das situações que me levou ao meu atual projeto de doutorado, no qual eu busco refletir sobre a complexa rede que produz os sentidos de uma obra de dança em articulação com a instituição que a torna visível. E dentro dessa pesquisa e desses interesses, eu comecei também a desenvolver um projeto artístico chamado Trabalho Normal, cujo mote é a pergunta: como realizar uma prática artística que seja, ao mesmo tempo, um trabalho normal? E minha intenção era incluir na obra o que parece marginal a ela: a construção do papel do artista no âmbito social, político e nas instituições artísticas, e as articulações entre artista, obra, instituição e sociedade. Essa é uma foto recente do Trabalho Normal que eu apresentei há umas 3 semanas no Sesc Paulista, aqui do lado. E o Trabalho Normal ele é composto por 5 ações, cada uma delas dura 8 horas por dia, com um intervalo de 1 hora para o almoço, gerando uma jornada de 40 horas de um trabalho convencional. Todas as ações da série são inúteis e não geram nenhum resultado do ponto de vista prático. E as ações partem de projetos, nesse caso, do artista Francis Alves. Aqui é baseado no trabalho da Marta Soares, Vestígios. Tem também uma referência ao trabalho do Arthur Barrio. Essa foto é baseada no projeto Umidades da Brígida Baltar. E ainda tem uma outra ação baseada na obra do Teixeira e Rissier. Bom, enfim, obrigada.
Obrigada, Cláudia. E agora, por fim, gostaria de convidar a nossa última palestrante do dia, a Julia Bryan Wilson. A Julia é professora de arte contemporânea na University of California, Berkeley, onde também dirige o Arts Research Center. É autora de 3 livros, sendo o mais recente deles, Frey, Art and Textile Politics, vencedor do Robert Motherwell Book Award de 2018. Bryan Wilson escreveu vários artigos influentes sobre dança, incluindo Practicing Trio A e Simone Forti Goes to the Zoo, ambos publicados na revista October. Em 2018 e 2019, ela atua como professora visitante Robert Sterling Clark no Williams College.
Hello. Thank you for being here, and thank you to everyone at the museum for their efforts in organizing this truly inspirational day, especially Adriano, Andre, Olivia, Natalia, and Miguel. I'm very, very happy and honored to be here. I also want to pay special gratitude to the translators, both those in the booth there, as well as those who have been with us translating into sign language, including Gianni, who I just met. This paper is broken into two halves. The first examines the US choreographer Yvonne Rainer's varied use of the score across her dances from the 1960s, with particular focus on her work We Shall Run. And we already saw a little bit about We Shall Run in Thomas Lax's paper earlier this morning, and I feel like I'm cycling back to a lot of the themes and questions raised by this morning's panel. Hopefully you can see those connections. Looking at how she notated her actions, that is to say, Rainer, utilizing the score both as a tool of composition and a memory aid, I discuss how everyday movements were tracked and absorbed into the discrete world of visual art. In the second half, I place her dances in conversation with sports in order to augment current understandings of her work and its relationship to specifically raced and gendered bodies, especially as a piece like We Shall Run was in dialogue with movements in the popular exercise and sporting world. So this is a micro-history. I acknowledge its provincialism. I'm looking at New York in the 1960s, but I hope that it opens methodologically into some issues that will be pertinent for everyone in this room, especially as I do attempt to think about dance and movement beyond art history, beyond dance history, beyond visual art history, and put it in conversation with vernacular movement, such as popular exercise. Despite a wealth of critical writing about the photographic documentation of choreographer Yvonne Rainer's influential performances, surprisingly little attention has been paid to the range and complexity of her dance scores. In fact, the term score itself has been inconsistently applied to the diverse set of notations that she employed to transcribe sequences of bodily actions onto the page, including typed instructions, hand-drawn directional arrows, stick figure drawings, penciled text on graph paper, gridded boxes listing numbers of steps, and color-coded lines. These are scores by Yvonne Rainer that have been called by herself and others floor plans, people plans, sketches, diagrams, charts, patterns, and designs. Throughout the 1960s, Rainer experimented with how best to capture gestures on the page. As the proliferating terms for her notational practices suggest, she never landed upon any standardized system. For Rainer and for others involved in what we now call task-based dance in the US in this Judson, also known as Judson as a shorthand, the score operated as a tool or device that could cycle between several tenses. In one sense, it was forward-looking, functioning as a motor of composition as it suggested, ordered, and systematized motions to be performed. Rainer's scores were also backwards-facing, used retrospectively to record and preserve what had already occurred, so that her dances might be remembered and repeated, so that once again they reorient towards the future. So this kind of whirling temporal glance, forward, backwards, forward again. An early mention of Rainer's score-making dates from her formative 1960 summer stint at Anna Halprin's Northern California Experimental Dance Workshop, where Rainer immersed herself in short projects and assignments involving objects, tasks, and fragmented sounds, resulting in a score entitled Sonata for Screen Door, Flashlight, and Dancer, the soundtrack of which was a squeaky hinge. Anna Halprin, for her part, had a conflicted relationship to scores, noting that they can be used to generate creativity, but can also cautioned that translating a movement into a series of words on the page is contrary to kinesthetic experience. So this is one of Halprin's scores. Actually, you can barely see it. It's very, sorry how light it is. I will confess that seeing it in person doesn't enhance its legibility. It's very difficult to read. In New York in the fall of 1960, as part of the Dunn compositional course conducted at the Merce Cunningham studio, Raynor pored over John Cage's musical scores and used them as springboards for her own chance-based operations. Dunn's assignments circulated around his conviction that the score, understood as a set of written parameters or guidelines to be interpreted, opened up new possibilities for indeterminacy and could spark evolving vocabularies for movement. As he told dance historian Sally Baines, graphic notation or Tanzschrift is a way of inventing the dance. It is part of the conception of dance. Within the context of Dunn's workshop, Raynor tested out scores such as Watering Place, which you see here, from 1960, whose two concentric circles bisected by spoke-like radiating lines appear to spatialize routes traveled across the floor, annotated further by instructions regarding pace and carriage at the bottom of the page, including going taut, being relaxed, or moving slowly. She also cataloged body parts, saying what one should do for the arm, the hand, the leg, the foot, and listed accompanying action verbs, ones drawn recognizably from the repertoire of everyday life, rather than ones that required specialized training, such as, for example, hands that might rub, clap, tremble, touch, or slide. Raynor's recruitment of found motion did not mean that she was not concerned with subtle detail and the control of execution. Quite the contrary. Emphasis on precision of movement and following of rules rather than humor, she writes amongst notes and drafts from 1962. These examples demonstrate how Raynor understood the score as a formal container that could strip dance of its overly expressive and narrative qualities. Indeed, such dance scores in the 1960s in New York had both practical and political implications. As Deborah Jowett has commented, those with no access to studio space could bring in a dance in the form of instructions to be interpreted on the spot. But more importantly, scores could undermine habit, artifice, premeditation, and present both choreographers and performers in the role of problem solvers. A score could push art by inspiration out of the picture and still foster an individual approach. Raynor's exploration of ordinary movements reached a kind of apex with her 1963 dance, We Shall Run, first performed in the gym of Judson Memorial Church. In this dance, performers, a mix of both trained and untrained dancers, referred in Raynor's program notes as runners, first stand still for 5 minutes, then begin to move with their arms at waist level in choreographed formations that cluster, splinter off, and regroup for about 7 minutes. Their non-dancerly pedestrian motions were emphasized by them having bare feet and wearing street clothes, including Alex Hay in a suit and tie, Sally Gross in a printed dress, and Deborah Hay in a t-shirt and sweatpants. We Shall Run was accompanied by a recording of the tuba mirum section of Berlioz's Requiem, a swelling and kind of pompous chorus that was meant as an ironic contrast to the very everyday presentation of bodies. A few things to note here. One, of course, is the tension or juxtaposition of the sound and these ordinary actions. The other is the fact that all of them are young and white. But I also do want to emphasize the fact that they are men and women running together. And I'll come back to this important point. As Carrie Lambert-Beatty has observed, despite the simplicity of the motion it deploys, We Shall Run is so complex as to perversely resemble the Requiem's interwoven melodies, repeating lines of text and groupings of voices and instruments. The organizational elements of We Shall Run are in fact notoriously complicated. Though only comprised of one step, a run, that does not eliminate its difficulty. Lucinda Childs recalled that it was very hard to keep in her head, and another participant, Tony Holder, created his own flip card score to help him remember the sequence. So what you just saw was obviously a very simple part of it, but they start to break apart and come back together in a choreographed sequence. Raynor's pen-on-paper scores for We Shall Run emphasize rather than reduce this difficulty. With arrows, lines, and numbers, She uses the page as an analog of the gym floor to diagram how the dance sends bodies across space via foot track vectors pictured from above. Such a movement map does not, however, convey other specific instructions, such as timing, how arms and hands should be positioned, or where the gaze should be directed. We shall run as an example of Rayner's scores at their most graphically dynamic, with its assured draftsmanship of looping curlicues set against more geometric angles and neatly parallel channels fanning out like fingers on a splayed hand. A scrawled tangle of lines are redrawn just below a different spiral. Certain clear shorthands that appear here recur across other scores, such as the small letters DS, which you can see, meaning downstage. But it is worth stressing that Rayner's scores, by and large, are not autonomous or transparent. Most cannot be picked up and performed correctly on the basis of what is on the page alone. Such barely denotative jottings indicate that for Rayner, the score functioned conceptually as a methodology rather than as a real pedagogical or utilitarian aid. The floor plan for We Shall Run and a later related dance, the running portion of Rayner's Trio B, with similar arrows and numbers to indicate the number of steps taken going in any one direction, retain a large measure of ambiguity and uncertainty, if not actual illegibility about how their procedures or directives might adequately be followed. How can the 4 dimensions of durational dance be adequately translated onto a 2-dimensional surface? These notations must be supplanted by oral instruction or other bodily modes of transmission, and do not freely circulate to be performed by others. Rayner's archives are full of visual representations of her dances, yet unlike the drawings of fellow Judson Church-affiliated dancer Tricia Brown, who has been institutionally recognized for her draftsmanship, Rayner's scores have not been comprehensively exhibited. In this, Rayner is hardly unique. There is no single, widely embraced notational system for contemporary dance. Even the Laban system, which is a standardized vocabulary for notating human movement, which has been used to document dance since 1940, has been viewed as insufficient. Merce Cunningham called it out of whack, dismissing it as a symbol syndrome. And Rayner, like Halpern and Cunningham before her, has expressed skepticism regarding notation for reconstructing her dances. Not least, she has complained about the deficits of Laban notation for her iconic dance Trio A, first performed in 1966. In part because contemporary dance has not regularized its scoring practices, it has infrequently interfaced with the legal apparatus of copyright or the publication networks that distribute musical scores. They have, in fact, dance scores, no precise cultural status, and have never been the official object of institutional interest. And I offer this meditation on the score as this investigation on the history of dance is considered by a museum, because I feel that there's so many interesting questions about partiality, memory, and the contingency of the archive to be thought about with the score. So now I'm transitioning to part 2. What is rarely mentioned in the conversation on 20th century dance scores is the fact that there is an arena that has a long-developed practice in grappling with translating bodily motion onto a 2D surface, that of sports. For instance, field diagrams, also called play diagrams, have been a staple of coaching and practicing what is called football in the US. There is no, that's just what it's called. I know the rest of the world calls something else football. In American football, a play is often choreographed by a plan of action or strategy. These plays range from the very basic to the intricate. Football players keep a record of these plays in what is known as a playbook. Like the dance score, the play diagram can be both speculative, as a plan for action to be executed in a future game, or retrospective, as a record of what happened to be studied and archived for the storehouse of history. As with dance scores, these field diagrams can range from the very schematic or simple, with X's and O's to describe offensive and defensive players, and or simple directional arrows there's also much more elaborate structures of notation. Within the annals of US football, the field diagram or playbook is a crucial source of information, as well as a fetishized communique directly from the hands of the coach, who, like the choreographer, is understood to be the mastermind or orchestrator of motion, which the players themselves implement or improvise around. These diagrams, or perhaps we could call them scores, have since at least the 1960s been understood as the central engine of the successful coach. This intense focus on the football field diagram or playbook was spurned by the multiple victories of Vince Lombardi, the legendary football coach for the Green Bay Packers, who won 5 championships in 7 years in the 1960s and constantly emphasized the importance of his diagrams. And recalled one former player, "You were responsible for drawing everything as he drew it up on the board and internalizing it into your body." It's very similar to the way scores are often described. In meetings every day, players would insert another page to memorize different runs or passes. At the end of the year, the players would give the pages back, lest they leave the team and be tempted to offer up Lombardi's plays to an opponent. In other words, the field diagrams were seen as Lombardi's conceptual material, fully invented and owned by him. Unlike the still uncertain status of the contemporary dance score, these field diagrams are understood as intellectual property and valued as such. So this was a page from a playbook that was for sale at an auction. And of course, other Judson dancers were interested in the traffic between their work and the world of sports, most notably Steve Paxton, who starting with his dance Proxy in 1961, worked off found images and pictures of sports figures in action in what he called photo scores. For his 1964 "I Would Like to Make a Phone Call," a collage of men variously jumping, kicking, tumbling, and colliding, was interpreted as a sequence of poses by the dancers, in this case Paxton and Robert Rauschenberg, and they could interpret the transitions between the poses as they saw fit, leaving them to improvise the flow of movement and how their own positioning on the stage might be negotiated. And when a team needs to convene amongst itself about coordinating a series of plays, it goes into a huddle, hunched over for intimate conversation so that the opposing team will not have access to what they say. This echoes, of course, Simone Forti's famous huddle. And just as a side note, the huddle was first used in the late 1800s at a deaf college, Gallaudet University, so that the other team couldn't see them doing sign language. As Rayner wrote in her memoir, Feelings Are Facts, My We Shall Run of 1963 and Steve Paxton's Satisfying Lover were noteworthy efforts in this period of adversarial culture, to use Susan Sontag's memorable phrase. Referring to these two dances, Steve and I sometimes joked that he invented walking and I invented running. Certainly no previous formal choreography had relied solely on running, as in my dance, or walking, sitting, or standing still, as in his. Paxton and Rayner's turn to both professional sports, as in an elite, highly specialized bodily regime, and to everyday motion, performed by those who are able-bodied, was understood at the time as a gesture of refusal, Sontag's adversarial culture, the refusal of the conventions of skill and refinement of the modern dance of someone like Martha Graham. But in fact, in 1963, the performers in We Shall Run do not technically partake in what we think of as running. For one thing, quite importantly, at the commencement of the dance, they stand still for 5 long minutes as the portentous music blares. They then commence to move at a slow, measured pace wearing street clothes, and they are not properly running in a full tilt stride, but rather engaging in the loping version that is meant to be low impact on the joints and is family friendly. That is to say, they are jogging. And I did have a question to the translators about the Portuguese word for jogging, which apparently is jogging. And I was curious, Gianni, is there a sign that's different? Gianni, is running different from jogging? Is there a sign that's different? What's running? And what's jogging? Amazing. Great. I contend that Rayner's turn to jogging in 1963 has a specific periodization, because it was, in fact, simultaneous with the popularization of that exercise, or actually its invention as a healthful activity. For jogging is not found in quite the same way as running or walking. It was created, marketed, advertised, and packaged in 1962. It was in this year that the New Zealand athletic coach Arthur Leodard started the Auckland Jogging Club, the world's first such club, to promote the concept that jogging was good for you. The word jogging, as opposed to running, was meant to invoke a safer, effective gait, one that had nothing to do with sprinting, competition, or speed, but rather was a self-guided, modulated pace that would encourage participants from all walks of life. That same year, the year before Rayner sent her dancers jogging across the Judson Gym, University of Oregon track coach Bill Bowerman took a trip to New Zealand, where he was introduced to the Auckland Joggers Club and the idea of jogging as part of a fitness regime. So believe it or not, jogging is not transhistorical or universal. People just did not go outside casually to run around in the neighborhood as part of fitness. If you were an elite athlete and track star, maybe you would run in a group as what was called road work, but that word jogging was not in circulation until this moment. On the contrary, jogging, running was understood to be unhealthy or even potentially dangerous for the everyday person to participate in, as it could induce heart attacks or harm your muscles. But inspired by what he saw in New Zealand, Bill Bowerman came back to Oregon in 1963 and started a jogging club there, and soon became associated with coaching award-winning track stars, and is largely credited now with the popularization of jogging. So the word jogging has been in circulation since the 16th century, but it saw a surge of attention in the 1960s with the publication of this book, Jogging, a physical fitness program for all ages, co-authored with a cardiologist. This cover to the book, originally published in 1966, not only reassures us that it is medically approved and that it will reduce the waistline, improve your appearance, and help prolong your life, but is given a medical stamp of approval by a heart specialist. And just to emphasize that this term was not in common use, it actually defines what jogging is at the bottom, where it says light running and walking. Reprinted in the 1970s, as it depicts invariably white, but sometimes mixed-gendered bodies striding together in configurations that do bring to mind Rayner's dance, which also in its day was full of all-white bodies of mixed gender. Bowerman importantly and most famously co-founded Nike in 1964 with Phil Knight, selling sneakers of flexible soles that were made in a waffle iron based on a design by Bowerman. Nikes were sold as the shoe of choice, not just targeted to athletes, but also to the so-called everyman who was jogging. And it's a critical part of this tale that the history of jogging is linked inextricably to a capitalist drive for merchandising, paraphernalia, and the purchase of specialized gear. Though you might not need a ball or a rink, what Nike demanded is that you needed, above all, the right shoes. And shoes are a large part of the Judson story. As Fred Herko commented, once a week I put on sneakers and go downtown, a code for going to dance at Judson. And Sally Baines's famous book also makes prominent mention of footwear, even cropping out the face of its dancer to emphasize its shoes. And this is also Yvonne Rainer in sneakers, rather than ballet slippers or some other kind of modern dance footwear. A 1968 article from the New York Times reports that jogging is the in or trendy sport, commenting on how it used to be only practiced by elite athletes but is now being democratized, and saying that jogging is good for your heart. This idea of the democratization of jogging echoes the rhetoric of dances like Rayner's We Shall Run, which has also been understood to make available to many what had been previously a closed and rarefied world. So I'm suggesting that these things happened in parallel. Rayner's recruitment of jogging for her dance and the emergence of jogging as a kind of institution right at this same moment. By the 1970s, the decade of jogging, the activity was still considered exotic and strange enough that the movie Anchorman, set in the 1970s, makes reference to how odd it was within public life. So this is a man from the 70s, allegedly, saying, I believe it's jogging or yogging. He mispronounces it. It might be a soft J, I'm not sure. So it's this idea that jogging is still so new that people don't even know how to say it. Though by 1971, fitness campaigns in schools were promoting jogging as a cheap, equipment-free way to get kids moving, it was still viewed with suspicion in the 1960s and 70s. Strom Thurmond, the white supremacist senator from South Carolina, was stopped by police near Greenville, South Carolina, while jogging in 1968. And the New York Times article reported many other white men being fined or cited when jogging on neighborhood streets, being called out by the police for their illegal use of the highway by a pedestrian. And I haven't found any stories of black joggers in the late 60s being stopped, and that's probably because there were very few. Because in fact, in a place like Greenville, South Carolina, which is where Strom Thurmond was stopped by police, just a few years earlier, only 8 years earlier, African-American activists, Jesse Jackson and 7 others, were arrested and thrown in jail for just going into the library. Of course, this is the time of the civil rights movement, and it's appalling to me to think about how Strom Thurmond was very enraged by this, by being stopped by police as a white man, of course, someone who expects to have complete ownership of public space, while in this very same town, less than a decade earlier, black students couldn't even enter the space of public knowledge. This, to me, demonstrates how the rise of jogging as a means to casually occupy and claim space is dependent upon codes of racialization, and in the 60s and 70s was overwhelmingly a white sport. Distinct from college or university track-based running, which operates within campuses and within sporting organizations, jogging takes place in public, on the street, on the sidewalk, on park pathways, and as jogging moves bodies between spaces, they are subject to more surveillance and repression dependent upon factors such as race and gender. So this is kind of, I'm showing a contrast here between running, which has been always uneasily, but still somewhat partially understood to be occupied by a range of races. And this is a moment where an actual student of Bill Bowerman is being coached at the moment he wins the 1960 Olympics, a black athlete, whereas jogging was almost entirely understood to be a white sport. And it is an inescapable fact that jogging is not a race or gender neutral activity, not to mention, of course, its inherent ableism. This is actually not what I want to show. The sociologist Rashawn Ray has written about how many African Americans can fear jogging, a fear that is inflected differently based upon gender. He writes, black men who live in predominantly white neighborhoods often avoid exercising outdoors because of the fears that others will misunderstand their presence in the neighborhood. Being black and male subjectively infers being criminal. This is me quoting the sociologist Rashawn Ray, who's written about black male exercising. And of course, there is a legitimate fear and reason to be worried about the prejudice of white neighbors, as in the widely publicized shooting deaths of Trayvon Martin and many others. As a result, black men who live in white neighborhoods exercise less often than they otherwise would. Black women face the extra burden of patriarchy as they also risk sexual violence when jogging in public areas. In fact, running in general is far from genderless. Women's bodies have had to be contained, reshaped, and remolded to even be able to participate in jogging because it is not a breast-friendly activity and can be punishing for female flesh. It can, in fact, be either uncomfortable or physically painful, as the breast tissue is impacted by gravity and the percussive movements of the ambulatory body. As a recognition of the basic challenges faced by women who wish to run, the sports or jog bra was invented by two women in 1977, Lisa Lindahl and Polly Smith. Lindahl, who loved to jog, tried everything from binding herself with an elastic bandage to going entirely braless, which drew harassment from passing drivers. She finally settled on wearing a regular bra that was one size too small. It helped with the bouncing, but still she couldn't run long distances without getting chafed. Beyond this logistical issue, women runners of all races face harassment and sometimes death when they lace up their shoes and take to the streets, spawning hashtags and Instagram testimony to draw attention to the many gender-based crimes perpetrated against women, including murder, as they attempt to get exercise. In 1967, Katherine Switzer was the first woman to officially enter the all-male Boston Marathon and was physically attacked along the route by an angry man. The adversarial culture that Rayner felt herself to be part of is glimpsed and prefigured in the wide-ranging grouping of bodies of We Shall Run, a kind of manifesto in advance about the rights of women to coexist with their male counterparts. So I am over time, so I'm just going to conclude and maybe show 1 minute of a video at the very end. So I have argued that questions of sport, race, and gender are implicitly invoked by Yvonne Rayner in both her scores that resemble football playbooks, as well as in her dance We Shall Run, which might be more accurately titled, Some of Us Are Allowed to Jog. In this image from 1965, the performers noticeably have bare feet, rejecting the commodification of sports gear, especially shoes, that was then on the horizon. Nike had already been founded by 1964. These parallels indicate how the discourse around democratic movement was already beginning to be in circulation with the invention of jogging at this moment, a movement that would be marked as much by the constriction of movement as it was about the liberations or freedoms of bodily motion. Great, so what I love about this MoMA reconstruction or reauthorship or representation is how, for me, to see all those different bodies of many colors and many genders and many ages kind of turned that ironic, pompous music into one of triumph or a celebration, because it felt like a vision that was maybe hinted at by Rayner in the 60s that could only kind of come to fruition now. Thank you so much.
Muito obrigada a todos, então, todas pelas intervenções. Muito interessante ver como, em alguma medida, em cada uma das falas, a gente abarca, de uma certa forma, um paratexto da dança, né? O Mathieu traz, com uma exposição coreografada, o decor da instituição e o coloca em questão, né, nessa presença efêmera de dançarinos no espaço, né, numa exposição, numa galeria vazia, né, contradizendo essa parece, função tradicional do museu, que é conservar, colecionar e expor objetos, numa exposição que, em 2007, né, Mathieu, que foi uma proposta bem importante no sentido e nessa discussão sobre a presença desses corpos em movimento ocupando o espaço. A Cláudia também, né, em algumas das propostas que você apresentou, também trazendo o paratexto do que, questionando o que seria esse espetáculo, esse lugar da cena, e rompendo com ele, né, nessa proposta, por exemplo, do exhibition, né, dessa fila de ter acesso ou não a esse espaço, a esse espetáculo, trazendo a ficção também, que eu acho que é algo que se relaciona, no seu caso, muito ao humor, que eu acho que é algo que, numa segunda pergunta, gostaria também de trazer para a discussão. E, finalmente, também no caso da Júlia, trazendo a partitura, né, que tem essa função tanto de uma ferramenta de construção e composição, mas também uma memória e algo que a gente pode até relacionar também com as falas da manhã, né, do Thomas Lax, principalmente pensando numa história da dança como uma história da memória da dança, dos rastros da dança. Então, acho que tem bastante relações que podem ser feitas entre as falas de vocês. Uma primeira questão que eu gostaria de colocar e que eu gostaria que vocês comentassem, e que também, em alguma medida, aparece também em todas as falas, por um lado, né, uma relação com um roteiro, uma partitura, inclusive uma das partes, um dos núcleos, um dos eixos trazidos pelo Mathieu. Bom, no caso da Júlia, eu acho que isso é bem óbvio, e também queria saber da Cláudia, né, essa relação com partitura, com o roteiro, né, e, ao mesmo tempo, uma abertura para um acaso, para a imprevisibilidade, que parece ser tão próxima e propícia quando se fala de dança também, né? E essa abertura, essa falta, talvez, de controle de um resultado final, né, tem muito a ver com essa, não só com a interpretação e a leitura dos performers que estão envolvidos nessas propostas, mas também da participação do público, e com essa relação ao público. Então, gostaria que cada um comentasse um pouco como que foi, ou como que vocês entendem essa relação entre partitura, roteiro, predeterminado, e essa relação com o imprevisível, que nasce dessa apresentação pública.
Eu, pessoalmente, tenho trabalhado bastante com roteiros e com coreografias, que são coreografias não só para performers, mas como pensar no público coreografado, como pensar nos objetos coreografados. Então, eu tenho bastante apreço, não sei se é exatamente um desenho muito fixo, mas como pensar coreograficamente todas essas relações, para que justamente pareçam, entre muitas aspas, espontâneas, né? E eu acredito que muitas coisas que eu venho trabalhando e venho me interessando têm essa característica de não poderem ser ensaiadas senão com o público, não poderem ser vividas senão com o público. Então, aí vem a questão da imprevisibilidade, a questão da novidade a cada momento em que uma peça se apresenta, né? Mas eu tenho me interessado muito por coreografias num sentido mais abrangente, mas que são ativadas de diferentes maneiras a cada momento que se exibem.
Thank you for your question, Olivia. To me, the score is a very tricky document, and I think one of the things I'm really interested in is how they've begun to be absorbed into a kind of visual art rhetoric, but often with someone like Yvonne Rainer, they are really inadequate as actual guides for how to perform the motions that she has prescribed. They're entirely fragmentary, elusive, kind of these fugitive traces that are, you can't look at the score for We Shall Run and really do it accurately. And she is really very invested in accuracy, as much as there was often in some of the early 60s work an element of the improvisational or the chance-based, etc. I showed one image of the Laban system of notation that has been officially used to put Trio A down on paper. It's such an interesting question of translation, really, between different languages, and I think a lot, maybe stuff is gained there, but there is also such an incredible friction. And I kind of couldn't resist putting an image of Trio A in a performance that I was actually part of. I learned Trio A myself from Yvonne Rainer 10 years ago, and I was just talking to Olivia at lunch about how that issue of translation extends not only to a notational structure on a page, but also to language itself. I still don't feel, even though I learned it over months and performed it officially, I never have felt like I can fully explain what that dance does. There is that bridge that I longed for when I learned it from her, was never quite affected, you know? So I think, in a way, isn't that the beauty of these different forms, you know? If Yvonne Rainer just wanted to like make a manifesto, which she has done, you know, when she wants to make a manifesto, she writes a manifesto. The manifesto in dance form is different. It has to remain different. Those gaps are really, really productive, you know. So sometimes I think, well, I did learn that. It's in my body somehow. I might not ever be able to convey that using words or drawings or a score, that experience. But in a way, it's like it needs to remain in the muscle memory of the live. So I think I'm also interested in the incommensurability there of the score, the dance, and the description.
Thank you. And what's interesting as well is the idea of not being able to predict the outcome when it comes to exhibition. It's reminds me of that great quote by Michel Clara, who, unlike his namesake, is Daniel Buren's brother. And Michel Clara said that was beautiful line, which is, an exhibition doesn't end when it begins. And I really love that, because then when we go back to the idea of how to write an exhibition, which is the way that Harald Zeman used to talk about it, making exhibitions, then we have to put forward within the conception of an exhibition an open-endedness of the form that we're working with. And thus it's really interesting, and that's why I proposed the idea of choreographing exhibitions, to really bring forward that idea of something that is not fixed in form, something that is yet to come. And furthermore, when we think of exhibitions, and too often we just have to do a little model, and that's it, the model's done. The show does not even need to be made so much, you know, because it's there. You aren't going to be different when you do it. So it's interesting to rethink how exhibitions can be thought about, and thus finding the way to write them in such a way that they will lead to an unpredictable outcome or realization, or at least something unexpected.
Em relação a essa falta de previsibilidade, voltando de novo para essa relação com o público, eu gostaria de ouvir um pouco vocês sobre algumas reações do público em relação a isso. Eventuais comentários, como as pessoas... Eu acho que no caso da Cláudia a gente já viu um pouco no vídeo, mas falar, enfim, desde o ponto de vista não só do fazer exposição, fazer dança ou arte, mas também da recepção por parte do público. Se vocês têm algum comentário sobre isso também, alguma situação para compartilhar aqui conosco.
Well, sorry. Or maybe I was hearing myself twice. Well, there's something really interesting, I think, whenever you work with bodies for an exhibition, and most probably you guys have the same thing at the moment, which is people, the public, tend to stay much longer. So whereas, you know, we could really easily time how many time people spend in front of a painting or a sculpture, when it comes to a movement in space, people stay for hours. It wasn't uncommon when we did a choreographed exhibition to have the public staying for 2 hours, you know, as a basis, because there's always that unpredictability of what is going to happen and be seen as a member of the public to a situation which is unveiling in front of our eyes. And that was something that I was not expecting to have. You know, I didn't think about it much, gotta say. But then to experience that was something very beautiful and very interesting. To realize that when one is confronted to the presence of another human being in the space, then one tends to give much more leniency and wait to see what happens. And that real change, for me, it was a real change of paradigm somehow. I've always loved the idea that somehow, you know, whenever we go and see, like your great show on the second floor, it's a movie, really. It's about how many seconds we spend in front of a frame. and then you divide that, and then you have just a bit of a slowed down movie. Here, when it comes to movement, just being around you, within you, you know, and then thus realizing that your own steps become part of the choreography, then all of a sudden, you break down the assumption of being able to normalize the time spent with an exhibition. And for me, that was the real epiphany. Well, one of them, so to say.
Eu tenho pensado muito na questão do espectador, nos meus trabalhos e nos trabalhos de pares. Eu acho que isso é uma questão central para mim, enfim. Procuro sempre fazer uma relação com as perspectivas diferentes que um espectador pode aportar a uma obra. E, por exemplo, no Dança Contemporânea em Domicílio, eu acho que uma das experiências... tive muitas experiências muito próximas, muito emocionantes, mas tenho algumas experiências meio curiosas que me fizeram pensar coisas. A primeira vez que uma pessoa recusou foi uma experiência muito interessante que me fez pensar no papel da arte, no lugar talvez um pouco soberbo do artista, no sentido de achar que a arte pode entrar em qualquer espaço, a qualquer momento, que ela necessariamente é uma coisa desejada, necessária, positiva. Então, essa experiência de recusa, para mim, foi muito importante. E eu tenho sempre me perguntado como é que é a experiência da escuta e de que maneira a gente pode perceber para além das confirmações daquilo que a gente já pensa e já prevê sobre o nosso próprio trabalho. Então, tenho tentado encontrar dentro do próprio trabalho estratégias de perceber e lidar com isso.
Pegando como gancho isso que você colocou de uma certa soberba da arte ou do artista, que supostamente poderia atingir a todos, né? Todos estariam abertos para ouvir. Eu queria reverter, enfim, essa questão e isso que você está colocando, com algumas questões que vieram do público, que tem a ver muito também com a nossa fala de hoje na parte da manhã, que, enfim, a gente está no MASP, na Avenida Paulista, é um centro econômico financeiro aqui de São Paulo, e que o público talvez seja majoritariamente branco, né? E que pessoas acessam um espaço como o MASP, enfim, apesar de todas as iniciativas no sentido de desconstruir, de ampliar públicos, de trazer em pauta essas questões. Aí uma pergunta vai para o Mathieu, né? Nessa perspectiva, como seria pensar um antimuseu, né? Eu acho que primeiro você poderia falar um pouco, né, desse seu projeto também, do antimuseu, e nessa perspectiva, como a gente pode pensar o antimuseu em questões de representatividade. No caso da Júlia, eu queria voltar a uma frase que você falou, que eu acho bem interessante no contexto dessa pergunta, né? Some of us are allowed to jog. Né? Eu acho que ela ajuda a gente a pensar um pouco essa questão. E para a Cláudia também, em que medida, no seu trabalho, essas questões de representatividade, enfim, do corpo branco, do corpo negro, de diferentes corpos, diferentes identidades estão assim, em pauta no seu trabalho, como você lida com isso, e, enfim, gostaria de ouvi-los um pouco sobre essa questão. Gostaríamos, né, de ouvir.
In the order of questions, right? Following the order of questions, I'm saying. No, what's interesting, so the Anti-Museum is a book that we did that was released last year. And what was interesting to me was not so much to think about how to do an anti-museum, but what would be defined if we approach the ideas of main cultural fields through the idea of the anti, so à rebours, so to say, against the the grain and the norm. It was first of all a show, an exhibition that was a retrospective of closed exhibition. So there's been a really interesting trope in art history since the 1960s, which has been artists seizing the idea of the closure in order to make a show. So therefore, inviting the public to see nothing, a closed institution. And I was fascinated. We had done a show in 2009 called a retrospective of empty exhibitions, voids. And when working on that show, we discovered the entire other aspect of radical art, which was that of closing the institution. And I love the idea that you would find so many artists doing the same gesture, but to different aims and for different reasons and for different outcomes. And what was beautiful about that is that really led me to the idea and thinking of what would be an anti-museum. And in as much as when we began our discussion, Olivia just right away sent me the article that Lina Bobardi was thinking of MASP as an anti-museum, and I do understand why, going there and seeing an exhibition space where all the walls are cancelled, and what does it mean? Yes, they're here, we can argue, they're just transparent, but by doing that, changes radically everything. And that is something fascinating, I think. And thus, the onset and the precept of the anti-museum was just about that, trying to think, okay, what is anti-art? What is an anti-artist? What is anti-design? What is anti-architecture? What is anti, and then opening it up to music, anti-music, or fields of cultural thinking, or main things of life. What is anti-religion? What is anti-philosophy? And that is, so thus, the book itself was defined as such by being an umbrella term for everything that can be antied. And this is something that I find beautiful in as much as when one starts to think about bringing dancing within the onset of the museum, well, one goes against what the museum is there to do, which is to preserve these wonderful and expensive, or inexpensive, it doesn't matter, artifacts. When there's nothing to preserve but a transitory movement, what do we do? Do we not go against what that very institution is? Why go in a museum rather than a theater stage, because the museum can do something, give us something. What I find beautiful here in MASP is not so much these great 2 floors, but it's the open terrace beneath. And that leads me to think not only what will you guys be doing in 2 years' time, but also the notion and relation of choreography with a museum. And that I adore just by walking in, and when you see people either queuing or just having a cigarette or eating something or just chilling in the downstairs or everywhere within the perimeters of the institutions, feel like, well, the museum is truly everywhere. And that is something, I don't know if I answer the idea of the anti there, but I find it beautiful, just the idea that we can actually activate the notion of the museums whenever we are. It's a bit of a community being affirmed.
Well, I want to also comment on what I understand to be a kind of porousness between the museum and the city that I have seen every time I've been here, a kind of free flow. Well, of course, it's always monitored in some way, but a kind of flow between the street and the building itself that, to me, has always been a promise, and maybe it's not a promise that is ultimately can be fulfilled, at every instance, but seems to suggest some kind of outward facingness that I think that the programming is tries to be very responsive to. I think in terms of my statement that We Shall Run could also be titled Some of Us Are Allowed to Jog, I too am trying to think about porousness, and in this case, the kind of porousness of dance histories with other things happening in the world, including the civil rights movement, of course, Yvonne Rainer's dance, 1963, happening right in the square center of the civil rights movement in the US, but also all of these, but also vernacular motion and the packaging and the commodification of jogging that to me, and which is completely racialized, as I said, and completely gendered. One of the there's many sort of histories of Judson and of Yvonne Rainer, and for some time now, one of them has been a kind of critique of the whiteness of Judson. And the work that Thomas Lax and Anna did in their current show at MoMA, one of the very powerful narrations that they provide cuts against that and show, the very first concert of dance at Judson, Cecil Taylor, a jazz musician, that those stories are a lot more complicated then I think now that, I think those are being reshaped. Those critiques are being kind of questioned. I do think, however, that it's really crucial to think about how a dance looks different based on what kind of bodies are participating in it, So I think that, glitchy, grainy, black and white video of a bunch of Bennington students, which is what they were, all white, all young, even if mixed race, that looks so different than does the MoMA version, where very consciously, it seems to me, they were trying to work against that received wisdom that Judson was only white, which it wasn't. It was predominantly white, but it was never that. It was never kind of like blindingly so. And so, to me, to think about the texturing of these stories, and to acknowledge that some of those criticisms were happening from the very beginning, from within, is an extension of what I think of as these needed larger histories that don't just confine the dances to, a relationship between sculpture, music, and movement, but actually are about, well, there was also, there's all these political movements that are happening. There's also vernacular motion that's being reshaped at this very moment. So I really think it's very important when we think about how we write art history that we cast our net very, very broadly. That's my answer, my very, very unruly answer.
Sim, eu tentei juntar, mas basicamente era como você lida com as questões de racismo estrutural e representatividade e presença ou ausência de diferentes corpos no seu trabalho, como você vê isso na cena da dança no Brasil, enfim, queria que você comentasse um pouco sobre isso.
Acho que eu posso falar de um lugar só, de uma pessoa branca, privilegiada, reconhecendo que toda uma problemática que existe na relação das artes com outros corpos, com corpos negros. A gente ouviu as falas pela manhã, e acho que elas foram muito importantes. E, por exemplo, hoje eu acho que eu trouxe um recorte muito específico dos trabalhos e da pesquisa que vem me interessando, que é um recorte que dá um pouco a entender que só é possível essa dança sobre um ponto de vista de uma teoria branca, de uma história de danças de coreógrafos brancos, etc., etc., mas não é absolutamente isso que eu quero dizer, e nem isso aqui é um recorte do recorte, né? E claro que eu confesso que talvez eu não me aproxime como outras pessoas dessas questões, mas que eu acho que são questões críticas e urgentes, que eu procuro pensar, sobretudo, na relação com o público muito, entre aspas, dito não especializado, com a relação dos corpos que estão, entre muitas aspas, na cena e os corpos que não estão. Então, eu tenho pensado na minha contribuição nesse sentido e procurado estar atenta ao meu redor e nas minhas práticas, sobretudo nas minhas práticas de ensino, como é que essas relações chegam, né? Estou trabalhando dentro de uma universidade que não é considerado um lugar central, mas um lugar de interior, em Uberlândia, Minas Gerais, e essas questões me chegam muito através dos alunos. Então, assim, o que eu acho que eu fiz hoje foi um recorte, mas que as aproximações com essas questões se dão muito também no dia a dia, me fazem pensar uma postura, sobretudo, artista, público, que vem me movendo muito na minha prática, né?
Agora eu acho que vou encerrar com uma última pergunta também para os três. Eu gostaria de ouvir um pouco vocês sobre a presença crescente da dança em espaços expositivos, né? Como que seria ver isso desde o ponto de vista, né, artista, do curador, do coreógrafo, do bailarino, do historiador ou do artista, etc., curador, etc. Enfim, como que essa presença da dança, como vocês leem essa presença da dança, como, por que ela vem ganhando mais espaço e estando mais presente, mas também em que medida isso também pode se relacionar com um certo fetiche, com novos fetiches, novos objetos de consumo também, de alguma forma, apesar de não ser, enfim, um objeto, mas, enfim, gostaria de colocar essa provocação e saber ouvir um pouco de vocês, como vocês veem essa aproximação cada vez mais crescente da dança, no museu em particular.
Queria aproveitar a sua pergunta para estender um pouco uma conversa que eu tive no almoço com o Tomás. Eu venho pensando muito sobre a presença da dança em galerias e em museus, e às vezes sinto não uma verdadeira aproximação entre esses dois campos, mas tenho um certo temor de que a dança seja cooptada pelo museu e que ela venha ou trazer uma representação das obras das artes visuais, ou que ela tome o museu como pano de fundo para uma dança que poderia se desenvolver em qualquer outro lugar, né? Ou que se faça uma justa posição desses campos sem verdadeiramente ter uma reflexão sobre o que significa estar num outro espaço, num outro contexto, sobre que contexto, porque a instituição muda muito essa relação que se estabelece, né? Então, eu tenho percebido nas minhas práticas, na minha pesquisa, a dança se interessando muito pelas artes visuais e nem sempre as artes visuais conhecedoras do que a dança vem produzindo, né? Não quero generalizar, mas sinto um certo descompasso às vezes e tentando apostar que esse projeto que se estende possa ser uma oportunidade para perceber relações mais profundas, mais consistentes entre esses dois campos, para que não se dê apenas uma justa posição, para que o museu não seja o cenário para a dança, né? Enfim, uma coisa que vem me preocupando.
I've seen so many different models for how it's done, so it feels hard to generalize. But I think one thing that I think about continuously when I do see dance in the museum is about the awkwardness sometimes of the punctuation of a gallery space by a live moving body and how different that is from many dances which are created to be performed on a stage. And I think to me, it seems really promising that there's been new attention to the labor conditions of those dancing bodies in museum spaces, because often the floors are different than the floors of a dance stage. They are harsher on your joints. The way that people move through the space is entirely, can actually compromise or injure people as they're dancing in the museum. So, and there are just all kinds of questions of safety and compensation that I think those conversations are happening because dance is more and more entering the museum, and I hope that continues to be a pressure point, because sometimes dances are made to be in a gallery space. Many times, however, it's an importation, and like I said, that awkwardness, actually, who really suffers there are the flesh and bones and the bodies of the people who are performing. So I think it's just something to be mindful of.
Well, I guess it depends how you define dance. I know the great pieces that I could even do, just sit down, even though that's so hard to do. I know, because standing still is difficult, but then the architecture of the institution and the museum can be perfect for that. So I think it's about semantics, it's about trying also to realize what is expected from the museum. And, if we accept within the definition of dancing movement, then movement has always been welcomed in the institution, as much as it is the number of footsteps walking in that defines whether a museum is successful or not. So somehow dance is at the very root of, with us, the public, as how it functions. What I'm really interested in myself also is this idea that how can we deconstruct the institution through the bodies? How the body can become both something that the institution desire, but also something that the institution fears so much. What happens when you welcome a dancer in the space, and all of a sudden what he wants to do is move or remove a work of art which is hanging on your wall? How do you have a correlation between a moving object and a static one? That is what is really interesting to me. That's why the last part of my allocution may be a bit vague and very object. But I really like this idea of what is the antibody that we can become within the institution. And that's something that suddenly is not framed or expected anymore. When I began the idea of a choreographed exhibition, to jump on the idea of labor, I loved the idea that it would just be nothing but movement, to have 3 people in the empty space of the gallery, and always notice the spaces have to be empty, as in the videos we've seen from, as many museums that we have, it's the open space. Well, what I love with this idea was it was going to be movement, so nothing, everybody can do a movement. But no, it's extremely expensive. All of a sudden, it's a different economy which is at play, and that has to be accepted, but also talked about. I know it's not very sexy, but it is super interesting to me, at the very least, that all of a sudden, because we deconstruct the idea of the work of art and go towards what we assume is a dematerialization of a work of art, it's not at all the case. It's a rematerialization of the work of art with an actual real cost, which can be extremely hard to bear. I was looking at MoMA's, the last picture you've sent this morning, where everything was timed. It seemed to me, at least, that the performance hours was announced beforehand. But one of the reasons for that may be, at least the one I can assume, is because it cannot be continuous, because it's extremely costly. And that's something which is fascinating to have. All of a sudden, we engage with an economy which is not that of the institution, that of the museum, and thus, how can the museum evolve? So it's interesting that, the challenge is not going to be the people anymore, but rather, how can we have the people and afford to have the people? That's interesting.
Obrigada. Eu acho que essa nota também é uma boa reflexão para a gente ficar e pensar para além também do seminário, nessas relações de trabalho e as novas relações de trabalho que podem surgir, ou diferenças, de relações de trabalho, temporalidades, relação com o espaço, com o espectador, que a dança traz para o museu e para o contexto das artes visuais. Eu queria saber se vocês têm mais algum comentário, alguma coisa que vocês gostariam de falar para a gente encerrar o nosso dia. Então, gostaria de agradecer primeiro aos convidados, palestrantes, pelas falas muito interessantes. Mathieu, Júlia, Cláudia, muito obrigada. Obrigada ao público. E continuaremos aqui, se vocês têm mais questões, querem falar também continuar a conversa aqui com os palestrantes. Muito obrigada.